To me, the First Amendment is freedom of speech and liberty.
Without this, we'd be a confined, frustrated nation, shamefully existing in a governed, unopinionated society.
To me, the First Amendment is freedom of speech and expression.
Depending on the issue at hand, we sometimes do not have
full freedom of speech
that the First Amendment states.
Good afternoon. I'm Juliana Wynohradnyk, reporting for demtech.org. The issue at hand tonight is whether or not the First Amendment really does grant us the freedom we believe it does. Thomas Jefferson once said, "A democracy cannot be both arrogant and free." This was what he, along with other men of the Enlightenment era, believed. The Bill of Rights was created consisting of the first 10 amendments. The First Amendment reads, "Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances." The First Amendment protects our freedom of speech and is one of the most basic constitutional rights. However, the precise nature of what is protected by the First Amendment is often misunderstood. I had the opportunity to speak to John Kakowski, a professor at Sacred Heart University. What do you think the First Amendment means to the media in our current time, the year 2006?
Unfortunately, many things to many people. When I was in college, we took pride in the media that was objective and presented the news for us to make our opinions, to draw our opinions from. Unfortunately, more and more in America, we have taken after the Europeans, and it's my sense that objectivity is harder to find.
On November 17, 2006, a college art student in Clarksville, Tennessee was hit abruptly with the question of whether or not we really are as free to say whatever we please, just as the First Amendment says. William Gentry created an art exhibit called "The Fat is in the Fire," a project consisting of deep-fried American flags, meant to represent the obesity epidemic in America. The museum director decided to remove the exhibit in concern for what the community would think of this destruction of the flag. The museum director, Ned Crouch, took down the exhibit so that it would not upset the community. What do you think of this?
My sense here, my reaction, and I wish I could have weeks to think this through because it's a very good question and important, is that if the museum and show were funded with public money, it makes a big difference than if it was purely private.
I was lucky enough to speak with William Gentry of Clarksville, Tennessee, regarding his controversial art exhibit.
The original plan for the meaning of my project, it's definitely about the obesity epidemic in America, and not only the adverse effects or the death caused by obesity and heart disease.
And just for the record, you did deep fry American flags, am I correct?
Yes.
An artist has every right to say whatever they want symbolically, but when an artist takes public money, or from the government, let's say, for an art grant, or when something is shown in a museum that is funded with public money, what that means is that there's an invisible line from the pocketbook of every taxpayer to that venue, and I think that does change the dynamics. And it would be important for me to know whether that museum was publicly funded or entirely privately financed.
Once you heard your exhibit was going to be taken down, did you fight this at all?
Not a lot. I didn't fight it too much. I kind of expected it, understanding of this area. I didn't really want to fight it too much because it's one of the few things that Clarksville, Tennessee has going for it culturally. I didn't really want to, my point got across. The subject matter got out to a lot more people than I definitely expected. Had the director not censored the show, then it wouldn't really have made as much press as it has.
Do you think that the director actually did a good job by taking the exhibit down so that he wouldn't spark anger in the community?
I'd be more inclined to say that the director did the proper thing. I mean, it's not necessarily the right thing, the proper thing, if it was publicly financed. If the museum was entirely private, I don't see why he did it.
If they took it the wrong way, then they weren't actually sitting there and looking at a piece of art and critiquing it. Really, they just saw what happened and didn't think, why would somebody do that? So if somebody took it the wrong way, then that's their fault.
There's a word that came to my mind, and that word is reverence. I hear that word much less in our society, and that is a word which is volitionally and voluntarily uttered. Some things do have more meaning. My watch may have little meaning, my sweater may have little meaning. A flag for which people have died may have a great deal of meaning. And I think that artists should be very, very careful and aware of sensitivities when they utilize artifacts of greater symbolic value than when they don't. When public monies are involved, artists need to take the meaning of artifacts into account.
Do you have reasoning behind why you use the American flag for your art exhibit?
In our society, that's what it takes to get people thinking about stuff or being aggressive about something. And also the flags in general are cloths of communication and representation. And, the flag represents all of us as Americans. And it also communicates several things for what this country stands for. And I manipulated the flag and put a different kind of communication onto it, or a different message.
It's sad to say, but I personally think that as time goes on, the First Amendment, it's going to get more and more into a huge issue, and we're going to have less of a right to say and show what we feel or want to express. Do you think it's going to get worse as time goes on?
It's interesting. You're a student and I'm a teacher, and I've probably lived 3 times your life. And I find myself on so many issues being more optimistic than others. We have more freedom and more expression on more areas today than when I was your age. So I would argue that we are freer today in American society than perhaps ever before, if you look at the expression of human thought and meaning and artistic aspirations. I think we live in an era of terror. I am what I tell my students is a raving, immoderate, radical moderate. And I like to talk 50-50 about both. I'd like to preserve as much of my rights as possible, but in this age of terror, as a federal judge in Midwest Chicago said in the title of the book he wrote, Richard Posner, the Constitution is not a suicide pact. And it is my observation, perhaps backed up by fact, that we cannot be as free in a time of war as in a time of peace. Help me find the balance.
Thank you very much for your time, Professor Krakowski.
It's been a pleasure.
Obviously, there are many different opinions regarding the First Amendment. So I pose to you a final question. How much is too much? And who should control all this freedom that we have? This has been Juliana Wynohradnyk reporting for demtech.org. Thank you and good night.